Let's agree to disagree. I'm Jessica Milagros, your host, along with Hannah Claire, Busy Blue. Yo, it's been a busy day today. Hey, Tay the Bay. Y'all, give it up. Like, we've had an amazing first two interviews. Let's keep up the energy. I'm hearing some back feed.
Is it me?
Who knows? Is that me? No. Hello? It's busy.
It's really me?
I think so. Oh, no, not anymore. Okay. Everybody's good. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Everybody, thank you so much. It has been a long day. So we thank you for jumping from interview to interview to interview. This is about as much as our show has been doing. We've been doing so much these past couple weeks. If you don't already, click like, subscribe, click to receive notifications to let you know when we're on. Obviously, Big Brother is now going to a close. We will have other people that we will be interviewing, but as of now, the 18th, for those who are interested, we will be recapping The Bachelorette, and that is Michelle's season. We're super excited about that. That you will see Hannah Claire, myself, Kemi, Busy from time to time, I hope. We will all be recapping here and there, and it would be a wonderful time, and we'll also be doing Celebrity Big Brother. So we have a lot of content for you. Just click like and receive those notifications. Super chat is also a great way to show the people that you love them and for us to see your comments. And this is a good one because we have a great we've just had a lot of people here.
We have. Are you excited because your birthday is like after this one? It's now your birthday.
That's it. Yeah. After this, I actually have an Instagram live for those that are interested with AT&T and HBO Max. I will be interviewing Johnny Sibley at the AT&T store with HBO Max on Thursday. That's actually my birthday. So for those of you who are interested, I'm going to be posting more information on my Instagram. Okay, without further ado, we have someone who I know it's Busy's favorite, as we can see.
It's so adorable.
Busy has been really wanting him to come on, in
more ways than one.
Hey, this is not a PG. This is not a PG interview, so I don't know what I'm talking about. Yes, Bibine, and thank you to all our moderators out there. It must be nice turning 26. How'd you know, boo? Absolutely.
We didn't give her age out.
It's okay. But anyway, without further ado, we got the one, we got the only. You love him, you hate him, you love to hate him, or you love to not hate him. Whichever the case is, we got him here. It's Mr. Kyland. Yeah.
What's up, everybody?
Hello. Okay.
Hello.
Kyland, how are you doing? First of all,
I'm doing pretty wonderful.
Yes. You're in the theater, I see.
Yes, I am. Yeah, very, very fortunate. Been able to stay with an amazing individual along with some of the other house guests out of the house. So it's kind of been like our halfway house coming out. I didn't get to go to the jury house, so getting to spend some time with them here still in LA. I'm from LA, so I'm staying here, but having the folks not from LA staying with us has been really cool.
Yeah, a lot of it's hard not to go into the jury house and have that time to decompress. But what's interesting is that you're also from California. But have you gone home, or you just told people like, hey, I'm not coming home, or?
No, I went to my parents' house because they're actually out in Pomona, but I don't have a home in LA because I gave up my apartment to go into the show. They're like, hey, do you want to sign this lease? I was like, no, I'm just going to call this in as it's happening. Even though Big Brother wouldn't tell me whether or not I got it, I was just like, you know what? Give up my room to somebody else. I gave up the apartment and then the room I was renting temporarily after that. And I just was like, I'll be homeless or I'll be in the Big Brother house. Unfortunately, it was the latter.
That's a leap of faith.
That's a huge leap of faith.
What made you or decided to get on Big Brother? What was that determining factor?
From me wanting to do it, like why did I apply?
Yeah, in general, why'd you?
Oh.
Yeah, or
why'd
like
you
how
apply?
was Derek? Because Derek X gave us like the tea on his casting process.
Yes.
So like, what? How did it go for you? Like, were you always a big fan of the show, and then you just like applied like normal? Like, did you DM someone on Instagram? Like, how did this happen for you?
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I think this actually would be a great point too to kind of highlight like something I knew going into the house and have already been learning more about outside the house is around the like I have like a attention deficit disorder that's outside the normal scales, and so it moves up into kind of similar to cues that people usually associate with like the spectrum in terms of whether it's social cues or dynamics or hearing multiple questions or having multiple conversations, multiple sentences run on in my head, which is great for like analyzing things, which was super helpful from a strategic perspective in the house. But sometimes in communicating things, I'll play 4 sentences and then answer the 4th one, even though we just did the first one. And so sometimes it's like that it comes off as like me pausing or me talking a lot to try and catch up with the thoughts that are in my head. And so just right now, when you're asking the questions, it was multiple questions. And so I realized that and I caught myself getting caught up in that. And I try, I normally, in normal situations, I think I'm pretty good about being able to adapt to it. But I caught it and was like, okay, let me get this out of the way quickly or up front. Yeah, as far as the casting side for me or wanting to apply, I guess to go back to the first part, I love the show. I love Big Brother. Like one of my best friends, he'd been fans for over a decade, tried to get me to watch, never watched it because I didn't watch any reality TV. And then finally I was like, all right, let me check out this show. First episode, I just fell in love and was like, okay, wait, this is a game. And by the time that first season ended, it was season 20. I'd already watched like 6 other seasons, like just because I went back and was obsessed and then continued to watch and dive in and rewatch and follow players and everything. And then, so I started applying and this is my 3rd time applying. And so I got the call and just the call went from Jesse, the amazing like head of casting for them, just the coolest guy. And then went from there to, Jessica, it's multiple rounds of, and a lot of work, a lot of questions, a lot of interviews, talking to so many different people, turning in so much information, so many pictures, everything, tests. And unfortunately just I got that last word that was like, you're at a certain point and I was like, you know what? I'm going for it. I'm just, the guy I was in the room from was like, do you want it next month? I have somebody. I was like, give it to him. I'll figure it out. I'm going to be in the house. And fortunately I was.
Yes.
That leap of faith. That's awesome. So these are super chats. Jordan, thank you so much for the super chat.
He's been with us all
Jordan.
I love
I'm
it.
pretty sure you're aware, Jordan. Jordan has been a very avid fan. Twitter, he is keeping us up to date with all of the BB 23 gossip. He says it's me again. So I'm assuming that you have met.
Yes, on Twitter for sure.
Yes.
He's such a great guy.
Yes, he said you had an inclination that you weren't exactly America's favorite. How do you feel now that you're out of the house? We enjoy you being able to make jokes about yourself. Very good sportsmanship. I actually really appreciate that from you all as well, because that is a hard thing to come from a loved season and to kind of get also the shit, the shitty end of it all. How do you feel now that you're out of the house and seeing what you see now, or what you know?
I mean, I felt pretty good. I think that inclination just came from knowing that I tend to have the same thing that I was talking with my brain. It also helps me compartmentalize sometimes too much, like my detriment, to make things like, so I see something not personal or vice versa. And so I'm very fortunate. My parents all raised all of us like with an incredibly high self-esteem in terms of not it's like common. If somebody calls you like, a purple elephant or whatever, it's like, I'm not like, why would I let that faze me? And so kind of similar. We come outside and we know what's going to happen. We always knew something was going to come off. And so it just, to me, it's like, oh, well, like, I get that. That makes sense. That is somebody's perception. Then you have everybody on the outside too that has live feeds, and it's just like the mixed up perception that gives you more context as opposed to like, well, no, like the biggest part of the game is nuance, is getting someone to say something without you having to say it. And so if somebody's missing that part of the game and has a perception of like, oh, well, this is what they said here, or saying something, or vice versa, saying something to get somebody to think something. And they're like, hey, what about this clip? Literally, people send me tips of like Tiffany saying something, about working with, people outside the cookout, like against me. It's just like, yeah, like that's not proof. That's just that's one of the conversations that happened in the game. And that's what we're all doing. So when I came out and I saw it, I just like, oh, okay, this is great. Like I'm used to being misunderstood, but then I also like am very pro accountability in terms of like always wanting to figure out like, hey, there's a difference between intention and impact. And sometimes regardless of your best intentions, it can have a different impact. And for me, it's like, what's the impact? Let me find out. Let me talk to people about it and see how they feel, how they're impacted, and then figure out between us, like, is this something that we want to talk about privately or publicly or whatnot? And I just respect those decisions and try my best to keep building up the things that people care about.
You know what?
And building up my fellow house guests.
I love that about you and how you were in the house with that. And some may call it emotionally manipulative at some times. Would you consider yourself, you wanted to get as much information from your house guests as possible. Tell me a secret. Tell me something no one else knows. Would you use that to your advantage at most times? I didn't see a lot of house guests doing it. I mean, I love to talk and I love someone to talk to me. But was that a part of your strategy?
I guess it's like, it's tricky because this goes back to like my brain, like dissecting things. And I think most of us dissecting things in terms of like not being binary, like 1 or 0. Because if I'm having an amazing, incredible relationship with someone and then they also want to talk to me about something, then it's like, well, and that's the point of the game. It doesn't change the fact that my relationship with that person is real. I think I saw what was it? I was like, oh man, a hurtful message was something about me pretending to cry when like Derek X left. And I just was like, I mean, I was like, if anything, I was holding back tears. Like same thing for Sarah Beth, like when these people left, I was like, no, like if anything, I'm holding back tears from these. So there is a weird interception of like, hey, like, why are you doing, does it help that you like this person, that you like these people, and that you are building, or that your relationship with them is real? And that's why it's like such a gray area. It's like, is that manipulation? And I guess in the same sense that anything is, if you hang out with someone in any capacity in the real world and you happen to also benefit from that, like, whether it's nepotism or something else, it doesn't mean that that's the reason that you're doing it. They can both be true.
I have a question for you, Kyland, kind of touching on something that you said in the previous answer. Is that do you feel like that's kind of the route that you're taking? Because I know a lot of people, that's probably what's going to be in the chat a lot and on Twitter, is people asking, like, outside of the house, since you've been out, what are you doing? What kind of conversations are you having with these people? Are you kind of taking the route of like, if, say, this person wants to handle this privately, that's what you're doing, and if this person wants to handle it, publicly and talk about it publicly, that's what you're doing? Like, are you just kind of trying to go individually with what people say, like talking publicly versus privately? Is it kind of person by person?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely person by person. I mean, it's like what's it called? I saw something, what was it? And it's person by person and also situation and impact. So like an example or two examples would be me and Xavier were talking after the show, or we've talked multiple times since then, and he literally was just like, hey, you know what? I went home, and he's like, as soon as I realized that like there's a miscommunication here in terms of what was thought was being said and what was said, he's like, I went home and my family, I was like, hey, I spent a lot of time with this guy. I can almost guarantee you the thing that I heard and the words that were being said and the things that most people heard and felt wasn't what he meant. And he's like, I'll talk to him, clear it up. And then we did, because it's like, because we're brothers, and it's just like, no matter how much you want us to, like, we're not going to suddenly start hating each other just because I messed up in my word choice and what was happening in the situation, because he knew what was going on there. And so it just was like the same. I saw a comment that was just like, hey, you need to have this public, apology for him. I'm like, well, that's not really up to anybody else besides him and his family. Mm-hmm. And so I leave that with them, and we have those conversations. And then it's like similar for Tiffany in terms of, there was a comment around when I was in the room, and I was in my room during my HOH, and I'm like, man, like, I'm devastated because this is the person I want to work with all season. And then we end up in the situation where it feels to me that we can't. And then I'm like, man, I'm like, Christian, like talking to her son and mom and Pat, I'm like, oh, like, why couldn't you guys just tell her in a letter? And I'm just like, in my heart, like so sad about it. And then people are just like, oh, well, this is you like calling out our family. I'm like, no, like, I'm literally just sad and like wishing, this could happen differently, that these lies or whatever didn't happen. And I was like, but obviously me and her talk. And I'm like, hey, like, if this is something that feels a certain way, like, let me know. And she's like, oh, no, not at all. Like, and I'm like, okay, like, then I'll just leave the internet to do their thing and have their own opinions. And I would say that the only side where I'm always looking to step up is like where I'm saying something that I understand. And going back to like, the way that I process thoughts and information, sometimes it's like, as with most people, but me, I think just to a higher degree, like sometimes I know what I'm saying. And so if I'm talking to, Derek X actually was the first person that kind of helped me like find the articulation to around Chada, around like, hey, there's a lot of flack around like interchangeable about me. I'm like, no, I'm not. At that point, I'm just looking at final two. I'm like, okay, if I'm just looking at final two, then I'm not looking at interchangeable, or I'm not looking at 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm literally just looking at 2. So if I'm only looking at 2, and I could see myself going to the end of the game with just with one other person, and I'm not looking at somebody else, then it's like, well, it doesn't matter who 3, 4, 5, 6 is. And it came off this other way, and I didn't. Well, sorry. The only thing I would say on that is that, like, in that setting, since we're in a public format, since it was interpreted as, since it came off from my word choice, my poor word choice is the other way, it felt like an insult or a frustration to her. And that's something that I'm like, oh no, I'm so sorry about that. Like that, I'm so sorry that you had to feel this embarrassment or this insult like on a public setting, because that's never something I would have wanted. I'm sorry that my word choice was just not good enough to avoid that, because I hate that happened. And I'd hate that happened for anybody.
So you truly 100% in your heart don't feel like in that moment, because you were hurt, like the person you thought was going to take you to the end betrayed you in that moment. So you truly in that moment didn't feel like vindictive, like I want to say something that's going to hurt him. Like that's not what was going through my kids. I think people, like we see that happen a lot. That's pretty common when people go out of the house. It was just the difference between like bringing up a family member. And so I think that's why people feel that you did mean to, like, you were intentionally saying that in that way, because I mean, you were hurt. So that's what I think is really confusing for a lot of people.
It is, and I think that's kind of that's just the nature of being different, is that sometimes it's just misunderstood, and like, and I understand it. I'm not here to say that I don't understand that concept. It's just, it is unfortunately the way I've always, even like I said, that comment, like when I was talking to Tiffany's family, and I just was like, no, like I'm sad, and I'm saying how like, oh, wouldn't this be better? Or I'm referencing this conversation or whatever. When I was younger, I went through this whole thing with my family. Oh, wow, it's a Siri thing just turned on. When I was younger, I used to not say goodbye on the phone. So like if a phone call ended, and we were having a conversation and I was like, okay, cool, thanks. And then I just hang up. And it just was, because it just didn't make sense to me. I was like, oh, I'm just being considerate. I'm saving this person time for their time. And I've learned like, okay, sometimes there's just things that people as a whole process differently. And so that morning, I was in the DR and was asked about like, oh, how comfortable? I was like, not super comfortable. They told me not to pack my bags, but I'm going to go finish packing my bags because I'm pretty sure that it could go either way. And so I literally went and finished packing my bag with everything it could fit. And then I was like, what would I talk about? I was like, oh, this would be something that we talked about or whatever. And it feels like, it feels
so you thought about it before. You thought
well,
it out
I thought out, but I thought literally from this other interpretation, I was like, oh no. And then as soon as I found out, like, oh, this is the takeaway and this is what's making people upset, I'm like, oh gosh, I'm so sorry that that's the case. And like, I was more disappointed than frustrated, than upset, I would say. I was much more disappointed because I was like, I get it. Like, it's a game, it's a smart move. And like, I never have thought otherwise about it being a smart move or thought about being a quality move or thought anything less of Xavier as like a overall person or Tiffany or anybody else in the house based on something that happened in the game. And I think seeing where, you know, whether it's comments now or comments otherwise, where people are just like, hey, like, this is, you know, this is what he means. I'm just like, I can only tell what I was true and people feel it or they don't. And I'm always trying to learn though. I'm always like, hey, okay, this is how this is interpreted. Okay, let me figure out how can I now build this person up or how can I now speak in a platform to rectify and repair whatever sort of damages this person or this person is feeling. And I'm always talking with them. I'm talking with professionals about how to do that because that is important to me. And like, I think that was one thing that was consistent is like, I would tell people, I'm like, hey, if I'm saying something and it's feeling and makes you feel upset or frustrated or down talked or whatever, like I do want to know because that's not going to be my intention. It's just not the type of person I am.
Was that a part of your strategy? Like when you, because I know you talk a lot about who you are and understanding yourself and knowing yourself, then what do you think was going to be your strong suit going into the house? Like, this is how I'm going to go in and I'm going to win. What was your strong suit knowing yourself so well?
I mean, going into the house, I knew it was going to be, I look at Big Brother, it's always like, for me, it's like the three categories of social game, strategic game, and competitive game. And like, I knew I'd have to try and figure out a team and figure out my own way to match all three of those. But as soon as we had the cookout, I saw that and I was like, oh, okay, I don't have to do that because now my goal is no longer to win this game. My goal is how do we move 6 people forward? So now I knew I could sacrifice certain things. I'm like, okay, I can sacrifice my social game because with all but these 2 people, because, you know, I don't have the capacity to make the strategic decisions or the competitive decisions that we need as a team to move forward because there are certain things that just make sense to me. So like if I see certain things, the positive side is that I can analyze things really well. So I could see like, okay, cool. Even when me and Tiffany, like when she first showed me the master plan concept, I was like, okay, this is genius. In that moment, I literally had a moment where I was like, okay, we're going to get to final 2. And I'm going to tell people to vote for you because like, I was like, this is too good of a plan. And then, but then, you know, going through it is like, hey, and this is going to be Xavier's person is Christian. I was like, okay, well, Xavier's person is not going to be Christian. It's going to be Alyssa. I know that, but like, we'll talk about that. Like there are certain things that just click for me right away. And so I was always like, okay, let me focus on the things that, let me compensate for where my team is. I'm like, we have Xavier super social. We have Tiffany super social, you know, Chada and me can run some math stuff together because she sees numbers the way like I see like, you know, scenarios. So it's just like, okay, this is great. Let's work together on that. And when we said at the beginning, like, hey, you're going to not look at your personal game, for me, I said, say less. And that was it. Maybe not for everyone, but for me, that was it.
Can I ask about the whole, when you asked SB to tell Brittany that she was, what was the reasoning behind? I don't know. I was side-eyeing you a little bit, Kyland.
What do you mean?
I really like you, but when you was like, can you tell right before nominations, you were like,
yeah, no,
Sarah Beth, can you go tell Brittany that, you know, it's going to be her? And I was like, this is not a good idea. But what was your mindset around why Brittany would know right before you decided to put her up?
I mean, the mindset was just around, I had talked to people in the house, like to Brittany specifically, and she had said about wanting to know beforehand. And so I was like, okay, I want to get to talk to her. But since she was outside already, I wasn't sure if I was allowed to go outside because of the nature of like the lockdown and the scenarios that happened right before a ceremony. So I was like, okay, maybe somebody could tell her. And then, because they can't, like maybe they can stop me from going in, but maybe they can't stop her from coming, or me from going out, but they can't stop her from coming in. And then she was able to come in. We were able to talk about it and everything. And I just was like, hey, like this is, I just wanted to be able to tell her rather than like have her find out in the meeting.
Yeah, so it wasn't
I guess
a complete and utter blind side.
Yeah, so I guess it'd be helpful. Like, what was your question like in that?
I mean, at times it looked like it was it was like nobody else's name would come. I felt like if you won HOH after Brittany was evicted, you would still say Brittany. So I think during that time I was like, oh no, well, why tell Sarah Beth to tell her? We could just wait because I'm sure she probably knows she's gonna be up. So I didn't understand the go tell.
She didn't know yet.
Okay.
Brittany didn't know yet at the time. To my knowledge, she didn't know yet. So I was like, oh, I want to make sure that she gets to know before the meeting.
Yeah, I think at that point she wasn't expecting herself to go up. She had kind of made a little bit of a deal with you at that point.
I thought it was a deal, but yeah.
Yeah, so that was interesting because in that conversation, she's telling me about like, hey, we have this deal. And I'm like, hey, like, I understand what you're saying, but part of the conversation, and in Big Brother especially, you have to pay attention to, the semantics matters. So in that conversation, it was, and in Big Brother also helps to walk that fine line between lying and deception. Yeah. And in the real world and in so many situations, lying and deception, I think, that are essentially the same. And that is worth pointing out. It's not good either way. But in the game, it's like, okay, that's the fine line you get to walk. And for that, it was, which I remember I learned from Dan Geesley in 14, when he was like, hey, everything I'm about to tell you about what has happened is true. And then all of a sudden, he's like, everything he told him about what had happened was true. And then everything he said after that, what's going to happen was not true. And so for me, talking to Brittany in that moment, I was like, hey, this is, if these things occur, like if you are telling me the truth about your BB bucks, if I am telling you, if you don't go up on the block, then this is what will happen. So like if I'm doing an exchange of money and I'm saying, hey, this costs $100. If I give you $97, I don't expect you to give me that thing that you said costs $100. And so as soon as like, okay, well now you're not telling me about this, and I know this, and now you're not, so now I'm not going to do this, and that just means our deal is void. And it just meant, but she, from her perspective, felt differently in that moment. But like Brittany was, just and is just one of the sweetest people. So that week was so hard for me because I was like, man, this is you have to. I literally was in the camera, like reminding myself, okay, wait, she's an adult. We all signed up for this. She's an adult. We all signed up. We all knew we could be Travis. Like we all knew we could leave now, and like she made it this far, and she's amazing. And let's just, and she's not part of the cookout, and that is what it is.
Yeah. So I had this on. Thank you, Karen, for the super chat. I wanted to give you context to this, Kyland, because we found out on Tiffany's. We found out during Tiffany's interview that you didn't have gas. That you ran out of. Out of gas?
Yes, I was driving and like I had a short drive. It was like, and the gas gauge said, "Hey, you have 10 miles," and I was like, "Cool, it's only 5." I'm headed up one of the hills in the valley, and all of a sudden like dead stop, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna see what happens." And fortunately, I made it. But I was texting DX at every dead stop, like, "Am I gonna make it?" Like, and he was just dying laughing. And yeah, so I made it though. I made it over. I made it to the gas station. I had to coast downhill a little bit. It was a close one, but we made it.
Yeah, we were all kind of laughing at the fact we see that the interchange, the exchange between you and Tiffany and everybody else. You kind of all like kind of bust each other, and kind of crack each other up, and kind of say little things. And in Tiffany's, it was more like, see what happens when you choose X over me. You didn't get your gas money. So that's what happened. Karen is saying, see what happens.
Of course.
You don't got the $700. You don't have the $700K. You don't have gas. You don't have gas. So that was kind of the what we were talking about. Sorry, busy had to kind of go back, but we're gonna keep this moving because there are a ton of super chats. So I'm sorry we're kind of going through. I know there have been a ton of questions. So K9 Steph, thank you for the super chat. What do you do? You say to the people who have noticed have a clear difference in the respect level of Tiffany and Chado compared to DF in the house compared to now that you know that they're well loved. Okay, got it. Sorry, this was a lot.
Yeah, I can read it.
But so you kind of understand. So what have you noticed the clear difference?
Well, I guess this says, what do you say to the people who have noticed a clear difference? And so when I look at that, it's like, they're saying this pretty objectively and from their own personal perspective, because I'm like, I see this, and this is a space where I think, having worked in the fields that I've worked in, implicit bias and microaggressions are all things that you really study and that you always look out for. And we try our best to do it, I try my best to pay attention to it, whether that's, I'm always wondering like, hey, am I talking to this person differently because they're this or that or whatever? Mm-hmm. And by no means do I say I'm perfect at it. But I would say something in the game that I tried to pay attention to was, there are scenarios where I am giving where I'm talking to someone in a conversation, and we have no idea that we're coming from different perspectives on something. So I think that in general, it's something that I'm very much an advocate for, is for everyone, myself and everyone else, to do our best to make sure that we are not expressing any sort of microaggressions or any sort of, implicit bias and allowing that to affect how we treat people. I was trying my best to do that in the house. And I think that overwhelmingly, more often than not, I did that successfully. And for the times I didn't, of course, like, that's something that I'm working on, just as we all are, just as everyone else is going to work on that for themselves.
So have you seen,
but anything specific comes out to you.
The difference. So have you seen the difference between the love or respect for Tiff and Chada versus X and DF? You think that there's
outside the house or inside the house?
Yeah, outside the house.
Outside the house, everyone's going to see their own. Sorry, Derek's not asking for the car. DX.
There's fuel in it, right?
Yes, there's gas. No, I'd say that it is. It's the same. You're going to find. It depends on the perspective, I guess. It is, for me, I'm really glad that it is happening in terms of people. I'm happy to see anybody win, that, especially people I care about. So I'm like, hey, if somebody's getting a certain response from a certain person or whatever, that's the nature of a game, though, where you're actually competing against each other. Is that in the house, I would always say, like, hey, you have to remember, it's in everyone's best interest to choose how they want to perceive anything that you do, because as negative or to the way that benefits them, because they know they're going to have to, they know they're competing against you. So they may have to act against you at some point. What we forget is that outside, everyone has that same sort of motive. So outside, everyone has their person that they're supporting, and thus they are more likely to justify one thing for someone and then not address something for someone else. And that's just always going to happen in a game of competitors. And that's, that's part of it. But yeah.
I have a more specific question, like back on that note of the super chat that we were on. I agree with you. I think that everybody can take a step back from situations and realize, like, maybe I said this in this way because, like, I don't realize it, but I have this like preconceived notion about like this group of people, or I have this preconceived notion or whatever. And I think it's good for everybody to be reflective of things like that. And I think I'm wondering if you personally, not what anyone else is saying, like not what anyone on Twitter or anything like that is saying, do you feel, since you've gotten outside of the house, like if you've watched back anything or had conversations with your fellow house guests, like do you feel in retrospect that maybe your conversations and the way that you spoke about women in the house were different than the men that you were competing against?
I would say that that's definitely going to be true in cases because of the fact that we're being observed at that level. I would also say that there is actually I was just talking to Sarah Beth about this, and she said, you see somebody will ask, hey, this person said this about you. It's like, yeah, well, I've said stuff about my best friends that like, and so has everybody else, but we're just not being recorded 24/7. It's like, oh man, actually I feel that, but I think that, and that's out in the real world where not only are we kind of like Tiffany said, we don't have places to vent in the house like we do in the real world, but on top of that, we are actively competing against each other. So we're looking at different things, and sometimes we're mirroring people in different conversations. And so there is trying to walk through all those different layers of it. Definitely adds on like, oh, am I saying this, this or that for this or reason? What's the interpretation and what's the context in the greater picture of the show? Like there's one argument where it's wild. I discovered it while we were watching it. Me and Tiffany were sitting next to her. We were watching the show, and she said, we were arguing about like, hey, like her saying good morning and people not responding, and she's sitting there thinking like, oh, well, like why is he defending X and Sarah Beth right now? And I'm like, they were 0% on my mind. I literally thought that you and I had an issue, and I was trying to make sure we were clear. And she's like, well, no, like we were. And I was like, oh, but you seemed upset. She's like, yeah, I was upset because I thought this. And I was like, no, like when I told you I was just trying to make sure you and I are good, that's all I meant. Like I didn't even know that you were upset about other people in that moment. Like I literally was thinking that there was something between you and I. And I think there's just so many instances of that in the house where it's like someone saying something in their own meaning and you are nodding or agreeing or whatever. And whether it's game or sometimes it's game and sometimes it's just completely different pages, completely different misunderstandings too. But as far as improving and looking for the things, place to improve, of course, I think that's going to be the case for me and for everyone. And that's why even I had somebody ask, because in one of my posts, I was like, obviously where people felt hurt, I want to apologize and alleviate that. And they're just like, oh, what are the specific things? I'm like, it depends on who you ask. Like, what are the specific things that I'm going to apologize for? Like, I guess I don't know what that looks like, because if somebody's saying this and somebody else is saying this and they both have their own interpretation of it, like I can't please both of them. So all I could do is look to remedy those things with the people that I care about and then their loved ones, make sure they're okay. Yeah. And then on a public platform, do my best to speak on like, hey, we should be paying attention to this. We should be looking for those examples of like how we're speaking to different people differently. And that's something I support and want to continue to support for myself and for everyone else.
Yeah. So we'll start like and I see where you're coming with this. So I definitely want to say that I understand kind of your mindset. There are people, well, obviously, the reason why there's a mixed reaction with you in particular also definitely has to do with Tiffany, and that Tiffany was a very well-loved player. She was known as a very strong woman, as someone who was playing the hell out of the game in a lot of people's opinions. So I want to let people know that I'm seeing their super chats and I'm trying to find them because after a certain time they kind of go missing, and so I'm like scrolling. I'm scrolling like crazy. But there was a couple of chats that were very kind of similar in it. So I'm just going to ask you, Kyland, and you can answer this question. A lot of this disdain is between, what you said about Tiffany and also Chada. But this one specifically from Karen, she says, why did you feel that Tiffany was not a good representation to be the first person of color to win? She was, to her, she says she's strong woman, strategic. She was smart. She, in some cases, was a team player as much as everybody else was in trying to keep things together. And then we have Jackie, who also, thank you for the super chat, says, can you explain why you didn't think Tiffany would make a good representative as the first Black winner? So I think those two would be the first questions.
Yeah. So for me, I think this is definitely one where I had my own lack of being able to articulate myself well, said something that just was not what I intended to mean, and just completely put my foot in my mouth and just said something and had it come out in a way that was like, oh, now I see it. And that was something that I definitely took time to chat with her one-on-one and apologize for in a deep way, and to make sure that she knows how I feel with that, because it was like the conversations I was having in those moments was simultaneously, it was like, okay, who are the strongest players in the game? And that's actually funny, not funny, but like an iconic thing for the season, that one of our conversations that was on one of our last days was like me telling her like, hey, you're not on the block because I'm not putting you on the block because you trusted the wrong man. It's because you stopped trusting the right one. And like, for me, that was a moment of, she felt a disconnect between us early on, way earlier than I ever knew. And I didn't know that to the degree, because for me, it was say less. Like I said, when we said same thing for the cookout for our final 2, when we said that, I was like, say less, I'm good. Like, this is it locked in. I didn't know how much time together creates the right sort of bond for her to feel the same way. So I didn't know at certain moments that like she was starting to feel a disconnect and getting worried about me. And then like, going back, I think she said in week 5, she told Xavier about our final 2. And then week, 4, she told, it was doing these things because she's playing the game, of course, like she's playing the game. And so I didn't know, for me, I was playing the game on everyone except for Tiffany because I was like, oh, we're locked in together. So like, there's no reason to. So if I'm talking to Derek X or if I'm talking to Sarah Beth, I'm like, hey, this is, this is why, not just why you shouldn't target Tiffany, but this is why you should be close to them. Or this is, it was funny. I was worried about when I put Claire on the block, I was blown away. I was like, how is it that between me, how can I have such a bad read that between me and Tiffany, we can't convince Claire to still trust me and want to work with me? And then I found out, because Tiffany wasn't telling, she stopped her from targeting me, but she wasn't telling her, hey, this is why you need to trust him and keep working with him, because, she had to, or her building up the divide between me and Chada. Like, I didn't know that she was telling Chada not to trust me and me not to trust Chada. I didn't know she was telling Derek X the same thing. And so it was like, I get it now in terms of her playing, the game at such a high level, to where she's making sure she's covered from all angles.
You feel like she's a good representative now? Are you saying that you feel like now?
No. So what I was saying with that question, or when that comment, was like, okay, it's important to me that we get whoever are the 2 strongest players at the end. And so at the end of the game, I asked her, I was like, hey, who would win? I was like, who's most likely to win the game, or who's most likely to have the biggest contributions? And she was like, you and X are the hardest people to beat. And I was like, okay, cool. The problem was she didn't know that I was serious when I said, whoever are the hardest people to beat, I want to do whatever I can to get those people to final 2. And so I was like, in that moment, I believed her so much that I was like, okay, cool. So I can't get all 3 of us because you 2 don't want to work together. So if everyone's saying Xavier is supposed to beat, and you're telling me that he's going to beat you and that I had a chance to beat you, I'm like, I had no idea that was even possible, because I was like, oh, I thought for sure, it wouldn't be that. I didn't know. So I was like, okay, then I guess it's that. So in that moment, if she had known, she says it, if she had known that I would have taken her seriously and was really meant it when I said, I didn't care about winning as much as I cared about getting the 2 strongest players in those seats. So it just was like, okay, me and Tiffany can ride all the way to the end, or me and Xavier could ride all the way to the end, or Tiffany and Xavier at one point. I literally had a point where I thought it was going to be Tiffany and Xavier, and I was going to get to final 3 with them and tell them, hey, don't take me. Like, if I can't be in that last HOH, that's just how I felt it.
So then why didn't that happen? Why I guess my question for you too is if that was the case, and you said like Tiffany, obviously you had a very close relationship with her. Yeah. You ended up getting rid of Tiffany and keeping someone like Azah, who specifically told you she wanted you out. People who specifically were not as good of a player. Like, you could have been that third, so and both of them would have taken you.
No, so both of them were looking at cutting each other as soon as they possibly could. And so I was like, okay, but I wasn't worried about me. I was like, okay, who do people feel in the house? Because we can't see outside perspective. So I'm like, who do people feel in the house are going to be the people that make it, that they're going to be hardest to beat at the very end of the game between the 6 of us? And I was like, okay, those are the 2 people. So let me get them to the end. So when she said that, I was like, oh, okay, so I guess it's us, which makes sense because anybody else playing the game a normal way, I was not playing a normal way. So like when they said that, I was just like, okay, like I just want whoever you guys are saying is the best. Even if it wasn't me, I was like, that would be the case. But as soon as she said it was me, I just was like, okay, so people who wanted to cut those people, I was like, well, now I have to pick. So now it's either Tiffany or Xavier, because both of them want to cut each other. So I was like, okay, who between you 2 would win? And then the first thing that she told me was that he would beat her. And I was like, even with my vote for you? And she's like, yeah. So I was like, okay, so you're telling me that he's the hardest person to beat. So I guess I got to go that way instead, because I didn't care. I wasn't there to get just me to win. So both of them, same thing for Chada. If Chada told me flat out, she's like, her ideal final 3
Mm-hmm.
She told me in like week 5 or something, or she said anybody's ideal final 3 is what's it called? Ozzy and Big D. And I was like, I get that, but like any other season, and that's what I would probably do any other season, but I was like, I don't think that's cool. Like, I think that it'd be, at that stage of the game, depending on the contribution levels at that moment, I was like, hey, this is it. I just was literally like, as far as, and we jumped, because my whole point was like on the representation side, I thought she'd be an incredible representation. And I still think so in all the ways. In that moment, it was like, hey, who's going to, who do you think would win? And if she had said she would win, I would have taken her. But she said he would win. So I took him. And that was just the way I was looking at it, which I get is not how people look at it. It's not how people play the game. And I get it. And it just was like, it just isn't how I feel. Chad actually told me just last night, because there's this clip where in week 2, on day like 9 or something, right after I won HOH, I was like, hey, just so you know, I want to get to the end, and I want to make, and I feel confident in myself enough to make the moves to help us get there. And that may put a target on my back, and I'm okay with that. And if it does, somebody sent me the clip, and I was like, if it does happen that I'm on the block and you guys cannot save me without exposing yourselves, don't save me. I was like, let me go home, because I just want as many of us as possible to get to the end of the game. And I was like, did you not realize then? I asked her last night, I was like, did you not realize then that I was like not playing this game in the normal way? And she's like, or did you just not believe me? She's like, oh, I just didn't believe you. I didn't think that you were serious about that. And I was like, I was. It's just how I am. Like, I'm that person. Like, I don't, like, when I think of a cause, that's just when I'm all in, I'm just all in on that. And so at that point, it's easier for me to set myself aside. And that's why it's easy for me to set myself aside in like the social game, because I was like, I just want us to get to the end. So as far as having, as far as having Tiffany as a representation, like that, I understand came off as the impression, never something I believed, never something that I felt at any moment. As far as like on a personal level, I was definitely trying to have multiple conversations on that once. She knows that. She tells me that she feels comfortable with that. And at the
right
end of
now,
the day,
you
I think
believe that she is I was just waiting for you to say that. You believe that Tiffany would be a good.
Of course. Yeah, no, what Tiffany is an excellent representation of people as a person. She's smart, she's intelligent, she's beautiful, she's an amazing mother. She thus would also be she's one of the best players to play the game of Big Brother. Like by that metric, of course she'd be a great representation of the game. It's such a good representation that I believed her when she told me something even then.
So, okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead.
I'm sorry. If you saw me laughing, I was just laughing because honestly, like, I can't blame them for not believing you in a way, because we even talked about it for a little while. I was like, why in the world is this man, like, because you were like, I want the best player to win or whatever. And we all were like, would you, like, if you were in this situation, would you prefer, like, what would you do or whatever? And we were all just like, the money, like, of course, the money or whatever. So I can see, why people would just be like, there's no way he's telling the truth in this moment. Because, I mean, everybody is assuming that you're being, like, very self-interested in.
No, I just didn't care. Like, that was, even there's a conversation with me and SB right before she leaves. I was like, hey, just so you know, like, whoever, depending on the moves that happen over the next few weeks, I'm guessing it sounds like Tiffany and Xavier are going to be, final 3. Like with me, if I can get there, everybody's saying they're the biggest threats in the house. So if one of them are with me in final 3, I'm taking that one. And she's like, why would you do that? Don't do that. And I was like, it's just, so for me and her, I had this kind of like conversation around like, oh, well, let's have the best in there. For me, on a personal level, on a truthful cookout level, it was like, hey, like, we have we're doing something epic. Let's make sure that the players get there. And I meant it even when it wasn't me. And that's why, like I said, for me, it was at first just getting the 6 to the end. And then as soon as I realized we were going to get all 6 to the end, I was like, okay, cool. How do I get the 3 of us to the end? Because that was by the house's perception, by my perception, the 3 of us. And then as soon as I realized, oh, wait, shoot, they're going to cut each other. And also they're going to cut me. And then in that last moment too, me and Tiffany are having a conversation. It's so weird because I'm talking to these, we're talking to each other. So somebody will be online. They'll be like, oh, wow, Chado was serious about this. I'm like, she just told me right now. No, she wasn't. Like, I'm sitting next to her as I'm reading this mess. I don't respond, but it's just kind of funny. I'm like, these people are literally saying like, hey, this person would have done this, or this person would have this. I'm like, I can ask them, and they can tell me that perception that you have isn't true. So I don't know, but I'm like, it is what it is on that. I'm not, arguing in the Twitter comments.
Did you feel like you were going to be the comp beast that you are?
You can't know, because I would say the comps are so much harder than any of us guessed. And so it's like, all I could do was prepare to be as good as I could. And it felt like I prepared and was able to deliver on some things, and like in a position where we also had this unique game where like when we were throwing a comp, at least for me, it wasn't even throwing it for like, oh, let me not come off a certain way. It'd be like, no, we need this person to win to get us forward in this way. And so it's such a weird dynamic of like, you come in and you are trying to, but I practiced really hard. That's what I would say. I prepared very hard to be there. I was doing
Were there
all
any
of the
specific
comps.
like competitions that you like practiced before? Because I know there's like people, we had Cliff on just this season who had like the whole like thing set up in his backyard where he practiced and everything. Like, was there anything specific that you practiced for?
One competition?
I don't think so. I think that you can't, because you don't know what it's going to be. So it's more like skills. It was like dexterity in my hands, or memory, or quick recall, physical, anything like that. So that's all you could do.
That's true. We watched you work out. I know I watched every clip of him working out.
Oh, reflexes. Yeah, exactly.
Do different things in the weight room. So it was interesting. I'm sorry, Jess. I feel like I cut you off with one of your questions.
No. I would say, like, I apologize if the look on my face seems a little bit very serious. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm getting people. There's a lot of people who are, commenting on the section. So moderate. I'm not quite sure if any of our moderators are here. So it's been a little bit hard trying to kind of sift. Yeah, a little chaotic. Obviously, you're very used to. I'm sure that you are now pretty aware that that you've brought a little bit of this chaotic vibe coming out of the house, just with some of the things that you've said. So I just want to say, because obviously there's people here that love you, there's people here that are hurt by some of the things that you've said here. Girl, let's agree to disagree. Like, when we talk, like, ultimately I think that the season as a whole, and I'll say this again, it was legendary. I love how all of you came for a cause that will never be taken away. I think that all of you all standing up by yourselves, like, are amazing individuals. There were things that happened in the house, and it always happens every season, and things that we do here. And I've read some things about someone saying that people are being, disrespectful, and the podcast is nasty and disrespectful, which, I mean, I will get rid of you very, very soon. However, before I do, I want to let you know we are not disrespectful. What we want to do is give people a platform to be able to address what people want to know, maybe hold people accountable for the things that they said, give them a chance to explain themselves. This is, I don't know if you know this, Kyland, but at times when you first came in, I was very, very excited. I was posting about you. I was very excited about you. And there's other things that you've said that have made me feel a little disappointed, so, and I think that there's highs and lows in the game. Obviously, none of us are perfect, so when I post things, it's to your discretion whether or not you want to answer them or not. But I'm just, trying, people want answers. So I want to put this next one up of a person who did a super chat. But I want to ask you a question aside from this question, do you feel like anything that you said was misogynistic? Because this question here from Sunny Bunny says, can you please admit that you were having a misogynistic moment and wanted to have two men face off at the end because that's what the obvious thought process is? Or do you feel that was misogynistic? Do you feel there were any misogynistic undertones? Do you accept that or deny that?
No, I mean, I would definitely accept that, because that's not for me to I don't get to decide that, I think that me as an individual, I don't get to decide like, yes, this is misogynistic, or no, this isn't. There is words, words have a fluidity to them that it is, that context is in context, especially in a game of manipulation, and seeing backstabbing like is all going to be skewed anyways. But for me, it's like, I don't ask questions with the intention of like being right on something. Like it doesn't faze me to learn. Like it doesn't faze me to feel what somebody says. I think that for me, it's just like, if something is making someone feel, if something is going to make someone feel that way, or somebody is going to be like, hey, do you see how this is that? I'm like, of course, like, thank you for letting me know. Now I can apologize for it. Now I can look at how to be better about it here. It's just tricky when you have this many voices, as you guys I'm sure know, when you have this many voices coming at you, because you have somebody say like, hey, this is why this is, racist, misogynistic, whatever it happens to be, sexist. And then you have someone else saying, well, this is why it's not. And it's just like, whoa, like, both of you like may be right, both of you may be wrong, like in different ways, and there's different things here. So I'm always like, let's figure out what the impact is. If the impact is somebody feels this way, somebody is hurt by something I say, or somebody is that, I'm always going to want to figure out how do I address that? What's the proper place? What is the what's a better way to do something? I think that a lot of people look for like, it's funny. A lot of people look for yes or no, and then people also look for like the truth. And it's like, well, you can't always get both, because to suggest that would to take away the complexity of people. And so sometimes it's like somebody will be like, is this a bottle? Is this a drink? It's like, yeah, like, but then what are you asking? Are you also asking if it's plastic? Are you also asking if it's Gatorade? Is it Powerade? Is it that? Those are all going to be answers to that. And if the question that you're asking is something specific, then me acknowledging that truth, because that's how my brain works, is not me trying to avoid a question or avoid a yes or no answer. People say like, oh, just be direct. It's like, I'm just trying to understand. Sometimes I just want to understand what somebody is saying. And I don't interpret cues the same way. So that's why I'm always looking for like, hey, let me know. And then I can try and do better, because that's, especially being here on the platform now, I'm like, I appreciate it. And I want understanding. And like, I studied conflict resolution, and the number one source of conflict is misunderstanding. And so I'm always like, okay, let me find out what it is.
Some of when you first got in the house, I feel like a lot of the fans were excited about you because of how much of a feminist you came off as, and you were very forthcoming with that. And maybe some of the comments, and I like you. I think that some of the comments maybe came off misogynistic when it became a man's or a man's game, and I wanted to go to the end with the man's man, or looking at Tip as she wouldn't be the best representation. I think that some of those comments could have felt like, well, maybe he's not as much as a feminist as we thought he was. And I feel like maybe some of those things, or some of the moments that you had, even in frustration, came off misogynistic at times.
No, and that's when my devastation too is, because I'm so adamant about that work. I'm always like, hey, I do want to be supportive of that work. And I think I tend to overall in the course of my life. And for me, it's like, I want to apologize for things that happen. Then I also want to, like, an apology doesn't do anything. Like, I want to actually, what's the work that we can do?
Yeah.
And I can't satisfy everyone, but what can I do my best to in support of the causes that I care about?
I think it's very easy for people to just say, like, just say you apologize and move on with it, but that can also feel very performative, right? And so I think that with you, it looks like you are really trying to do the work. You're trying to figure out what, how people are feeling, why they're feeling that way. Was that something that you intended to do? So I definitely applaud you, at least, for being able to open, have these conversations, because they're not easy. Another not easy one that a lot of people want to know is, they want to know, what did Big D do in the game that made you feel like he was deserving of, like, more so than anybody else? So, like, what were his actual game moves? We want to know behind the scenes because there's a lot of people who kind of, feel like Big D wasn't really doing much. We were live feeders. We didn't see much gameplay on his end. I think you and Tiffany kind of carried that with, Hannah and X, but it was very surprising to hear you say that Big D had his moments. So tell us about that.
So what I would say with that is that Big D, everyone in the six contributed to us doing what we did. And to varying degrees, to varying levels. The analogy that I think of, which may be too nerdy for some people, is like Lord of the Rings. And the fact of like, I guess, at the end, Frodo drops the ring, or Frodo and Sam, they get the ring or whatever to destroy it in Mordor. That's how they win the war. But it's just like, who are you going to give that credit to? Is it Gandalf? Is it Frodo? Is it Aragorn? Is it Legolas? Like, everyone kind of had some sort of role, some sort of impact in it. And to suggest that things would be different if someone else did something a certain way or not, like, that's not my job to distinguish. And so I'm not going to say that that things that anyone did within the six did or didn't have, I'm not going to measure that impact because I don't think that that's for me to measure. I would say, one thing I would say was going back to the comment around, we were talking about Hannah, and hopefully that's cleared up now. Like, I wasn't saying they're interchangeable in terms of their skill set or like, contributions to the game. I was talking more, like I said, in terms of not having to do with me looking at Final Two. So on the actual, in the actual game though, I just saw a comment like, oh, but in the actual show, he was telling him credit. I'm like, yeah, like that's for everybody. Like, there's also plenty of clips of me saying like, hey, Chada is fully responsible for this, or hey, you don't have to win competitions to contribute. Hey, you don't have to do this, or, going back to week 3, some of my fans like will post on people's comments like, hey, here's this clip of Kyland like defending that the women did something here, or here's this clip of him doing that. And it's just like, or here's a clip of me nodding or me interpreting something or whatever. And so as far as Big D in his role, I mean, everyone there, participated in some way. And I don't think it's for me to decide what they did and didn't do and how it mattered or not.
I love that. So we're going to do some. We
can talk more in depth though offline, because that's a long. There's for specific moves here and there. That's longer. We can do that. We can do that. We can do that longer.
We're not doing a 4-hour podcast.
Too many moves.
Today.
I know.
Too many moves.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of show. But we do want to give love to Mr. Ramo. Thank you for the super chat. He said hi. See, you got some fans in here. He said hi, Kai. Big fan. Was rooting for you all season. X was looking at cutting you before 6 multiple times since Christian. What about X? And wait, first of all, I mean, it's not really the case. That obviously you all say things to other people that say, yeah, let's cut them, let's do this, but that wasn't maybe necessarily the case. But what about X made people trust him so much? In combos, he gave nothing. You, Tiff, Hannah carried the whole game. What was it that made X so so like everybody was cool with just him?
I would say X had a temperament that was super calm, cool and collected, and he had if you read up on like a lot of like psychology, physiology, there's some things that are just naturally that have a natural likability factor, and then on top of that, I'm sure you can weigh in, certain biases as well from things we talk about, just being like a tall, attractive male and stuff that can play a factor as well in the deeper voice, all these things. So I would say for me though, I agree with your comment on, I don't believe that anyone in the six like actually. And I could be wrong. I can't speak for them. This is my personal belief. I know for me, I was only looking for the team, and I believe that their heart of hearts, regardless of anything that was said, they would have never taken an action that ultimately did not let us get to the end, intentionally, at least. That is, when they come to that final vote, and that's I hope, and that's just, and unless they tell me otherwise, like I'm going to give them that respect of honoring and believing them for that. As far as, I think that gives him that trustability, likability, but it was funny because that's what I was telling, I've talked to Tiffany about multiple times. She said, she feels that she was voted home or went home for personal reasons. And like, I can't answer that because I don't know people's reasons for voting. So like, if that's how they voted, then that's fine. For me, like that had nothing to do with my nomination. So if throughout the game in general, even at the end, she's like, hey, which I guess didn't make the show, the live feeds. I heard they were cut the morning before she left. She said, hey, I don't know if X wants to take you to the end. And I was like, oh, I don't know that either. I could never know that. So I'm going to try my best to keep myself safe. And as we are always doing in this game, we're just going to try our best to make the best decision with the information that we have.
Can I ask you a question? And this is very random, but I was wondering if you could sniff me through the computer because they gave
of course, let me check.
What you think? Okay, what I smell like?
You smell good. You smell good.
Yes!
You smell good.
Okay, I've been sniffed.
You smell even better than I thought.
I can't. And for y'all saying that if I watched the feed, yes, I do watch the feeds, and yes, I did forget that X did say that to Tiffany, but I also don't. When I watch live feeds, I don't take anything of what you all say. Maybe it's because I played the game, but I don't take it seriously because everybody lies to each other. That's why I don't understand. I don't understand why people, because it's a mixture. It's I lied to this person to get this way, and if you don't say it on the live feeds, like I never verbally, and maybe I was asleep, never verbally heard X say, I need Kyland out before 6. Like I heard him say it to Tiffany. Yes, I did. Yeah. I do remember him saying it to Tiffany, but I don't remember it being that. I mean, he also wanted Tiffany out. Like, I mean, at this point, then that means that he didn't want the 6 to ever happen, to ever happen. Who knows? But
and remember I always think about like past, seasons. One of the prominent players had talked about like, of course, I'm asked, he said he was asked like Final 2 about his loyalty. And he's like, I said, of course, my loyalty is to this person sitting next to me. But if something else had happened, like if I was sitting next to someone else, would I have said that same answer? Probably. Like, you have the benefit of hindsight allows you to convince yourself of different things and to say different things. And like, that is, who knows what, why somebody said something or if they meant it or not. But, I always try and give that grace of like, hey, you know what? I want to find out what you mean. But the smelling thing, I'm sure I think I answered in a few podcasts. I think you guys know about it by now. If not, I can clarify it on record.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, where is this a common thing? Do you do this everywhere?
Well, so I do have, which I guess is tied to certain other things. I do have like high sensitivity on taste and certain smells and things, but the I call him Craig, man.
Sorry, I had to.
Because of COVID. Chat. No, for sure. Pop Mo. Because of COVID, they do have.
Let's take this off and I'll do this little. Go so that you can
okay.
say your thoughts.
Thank you. Sorry. Because of COVID, they do have they clean all the food. And they sanitize the bread and tortillas with like some sort of soap that went through. And so I would pull out one and I'd be like, or you make a meal and then you take a bite and you're like, damn it, it's all soap. Now I just ruined this meal. So then you start over or whatever.
They put that on the show.
So when I was putting them in the bags though, I was putting them in my own bags for myself. Like I wasn't just smelling stuff and putting it and then putting it back in the bag for the public. I was like, no, I'm the only one eating these. So I know that I'm going to put mine here or whatever. Like that was my space. I don't know how they put it, but I just was like, nah, if somebody may reach into my specific bags I hid off to myself, but I wasn't just putting my hands and face all over other people's food.
Everybody else's food.
The internet.
We have in the storage room, they give us 50 bags of tortillas and stuff. So I was like, okay, this one's going to be mine because some people don't care about eating soap. They don't even notice it. Some people do. I was like, this one's going to be mine. I'm going to set this here. And then they'll grab their own or whatever. But it wasn't for everyone. Huh?
Why not throw it away if you're like, because there was one tortilla you sniffed for like a good minute and then you put it back.
Yeah, no. If I put it back, that meant it was good. And I was like, okay, cool.
Okay.
This one's good. This one's good. This one's good. And then throwing out ones that weren't. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like you're picking up laundry off the floor. You're like, yeah, this is clean. There we
Exactly.
go.
I will say that's kind of a man thing. Like my husband does that too, and I'm just like, dude, really? Like, why? If you're even wondering why not? Yeah, why not just put it in the laundry? I'm just like, dude, if you have to figure it out, just wash it. But
it's my favorite shirt.
I didn't want to throw away whole bags of tortillas just because I was
no.
this one's soap. Let me find the one that's not, or bread or whatever.
No, that makes
me and DX
sense.
had some meals ruined when we were like, oh man, there's soap in this. If we just made it, especially if it's like a quesadilla or something.
So
we're doing rapid fire.
Oh yeah, pop them up. I'm sorry. I'll try.
So
I'll watch it.
I will like say.
I'll answer after all of them pass.
Yeah. Jackie says, "Hey, Kite, you said that while casting your vote to evict Hannah, that it was because Big D made moves in the game. We over here think, or she says, we know that wasn't true. So why say that as you evicted her? Because she was looking at you. That was like one of the saddest parts for us during double.
Oh my God, that's the saddest part for everyone is the look on Hannah's Chada's face.
But when
took us all out.
But when you cast the vote, it was more so like, sorry, Big D's made moves. It kind of insinuating that she hadn't. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, there's not fast. There's like layers that just had to do with visibility of the moves. It has to do with the fact that it's an emotional moment, and the fact that the fact that the main one just being like, oh, at that point it didn't matter because I was just looking at 2 anyways.
Okay,
and so it just was like emotional. Lots of things happening, and there's a truth to like people making moves that we're unaware of, but that's gonna be true for all of us. So that's always gonna have some sort of truth to it.
Would you play Big Brother again?
Of course, I love the game. It's the coolest thing. It's the coolest thing I've ever done. Like I loved it before I went in, and and being able to play and not have to sacrifice your personal game as much would be pretty exciting.
Okay. This one's a little bit of a tough one, but I'm going to put it out here because we know that our fans want accountability. So K9 Stevens says, are you aware that 99% of your answers come off as you all misunderstood me? You all don't understand. They didn't trust me. Is this accountability or not? Like, what are we saying in terms of what would you take accountability for as far as the things that have been placed on you? What do you see as I'm going to take credit for this? This is what I did.
Accountability for me is easy. It's accountability for everything. Everything that I say, everything that I did, everything that everyone that was hurt by me. I would ask, that person or any person, just like if you have your own specific version of the wording that you would like, that would make you feel that I'm taking accountability, let me know. I'll look it over. I'll consider it. I'm doing that, and always, because I do want to know. I'm not saying that even sarcastically. Like, I mean, I'm open to they can find me on Twitter. They know. It is. I would say more for you guys. Like if there is, because that's my conversation on the individual level with the people in the house. It's like, hey, don't let me be delusional. Like, let me know if something that I'm saying is resonating with you and feels like it's adequately causing the repair that you're looking for. And if it's not, let me know. Like, and that's the same thing I extend to you guys while you're generous enough to have me on your platform, is like the same thing. If something is not coming off as like as accountability, like, then I want to know that, because that's not my intention. That was the same thing I told. Like, I take accountability to the utmost. There's a time when SB won HOH, and I told people, I was like, hey, if I cannot get her to keep 2 people off the block, like, I will do whatever I can to make sure that I'm one of those people on the block, so you guys can send me out for failing. And I meant that 100%. And so that's, for me, like, I'm all about accountability. Because the child was like, well, I don't know if that'd be the best move for all of us, that you even go out. I'm like, I don't think I should make that decision. I think that I want to take responsibility for, I said that I would take responsibility for whether or not this person sends one of us home. And I meant it. So, like, for me, responsibility is like the thing that it comes naturally to me, and it is always fine taking any and all responsibility for everything. And if it's coming off that I'm not doing that, then, you know, I'm always trying to figure out how to do it better because I want to do that. I want to, that's the only way I can grow. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all growing and learning it.
Yeah, I think it's just more so in the sense that we say, okay, well, there's obviously this the misogynistic undertones. There are specific instances where, as Busy Blue has said, you know, that you've said it, that you've that you've said that Tiffany was not worthy of this. And then go backtrack and say, well, no, of course she's deserving. Everybody's deserving. But that's not what you said. So was that in the heat of the moment? Are you taking accountability and saying that that at that moment you just didn't think that she wasn't, and now you know that she did so much, and now you're like, well, now she definitely deserved it. Or
because I feel like that would be I feel like that would be something that people could understand in a way, is like if you were saying, you know, I didn't know of X, Y, Z. Because obviously when you're in the house, you don't know what everyone else is doing at all times. And so I feel like that would be something that people could understand more in that way. So I feel like that's where some of the confusion comes from. Is just like where.
Sorry, excuse me.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think I'm trying to. That's where it's always tricky for me to like close that divide, because it is, you say like, oh, this is something you said in the heat of the moment. It's like, no, I definitely chose wrong word choice, but like that isn't I wasn't lashing out in anger. Like I wasn't lashing out, or I wasn't unaware of things that were happening or things that were being done. I am unaware. We're all of us in the house would be unaware of certain things, but it was a long, like I was having multiple conversations at once. And even that word choice you just said in terms of like not worthy, like I had asked somebody online, I was like, hey, because I was like, did I say Tiffany isn't worthy, or is that the headline? And from this interpretation of saying not good representation, they're like, you know what? You didn't say the word not worthy. You actually said not good representation. And I was like, you know what? Thank you. Now I know what I can dive deeper into and how I can correct it. And then I was able to have that conversation with Tiffany and find out like, hey, oh, this is what I had wanted to say, but I see I made the wrong word choice. I messed up. And since I messed up, this is the harm. This is the perception it causes of you. That's harm. I'm super apologizing for. Is there any part of this that I'm missing that I'm like, that I can also like make sure I'm causing some sort of repair? And she's like, no, like she told me that she appreciates it and that we're good in that ways, and continue to have and build on this very strong relationship that we already had inside the house up and like literally all the way through. And we had, other than certain moments, but even as she was leaving, like we were in such a good place. So it's I'm always, I don't know if I'm answering that right or not, but like, once again, like it's sad because it's something I said like to Azza in terms of like, I promise you, I'm not speaking in circles. I'm speaking like a spiral, because there is a destination. And for me, it does help. Like you saying that, me responding, and then you saying that is helping me. And I know it's not as fast as like might work for some people. And I wish it was, but it's not, nothing's falling on deaf ears. Like I'm not sitting there stuck in the way.
No, I think that can't be understated. Like I appreciate you answering everything, and that's not easy. I do think, in my opinion, everyone's going to think different things. I do think like if Tiffany and the people who were actually affected by that forgive you, and like you've had those conversations, and like that's what matters. I really think that's like at the end of the day, that's what's important. And like that's all that, I mean, people after that though, people, it's just, you know, they watch for 3 months and they get invested, and that's what comes with it, is when you watch for 3 months and you see all these things unfold. I think that's where all of this comes from, is you know, they're invested in what happens and everything. And so, but ultimately what I mean to say with that is that if Tiffany and everyone else forgive you, then I think that's what's important. And like that's all that we can really ask for, is for those conversations to be had between you two.
I also agree. I also agree with that. But I also understand, and this is also just me understanding both sides to a story, is knowing that yes, this is between you and those people of the cookout, Tiffany, Chada, all those, but at the people who were watching were also somehow, in ways that you said, have felt offended because of something bigger. You know what I mean? So it's not only, and I know that, you know, there have been conversations where Tiffany has said, you know, nobody needs to fight my battles, and you know, she's a strong woman, so we all understand that. But other people were like, well, it's not about fighting the battles, it's about understanding like what he said insulted a whole you know, a whole group of people, you know. So as women, sometimes we were looking at it and saying, damn, is that how Kyland feels about women in general? Like, doesn't feel like they're, you know, they're able to, you know, to contribute. Like, are the women just not contributing anything, or just, you know, like, why does he feel a certain way? Why is he saying certain things? So, I mean, there's long lists, right? I mean, it's not, this isn't the show where we're just going to keep on bringing the lists. Like, I know that you would need a specific instance, something concrete of what you said. But I think it's more so some people work on factuals. Like you said, you want to know the exact word, and other people work on feelings. And how that word directly triggers them to think that you make them feel otherwise, and that you have this idea in your head. And of course, like you said, it's all it's all communication, and this isn't going to be resolved in one podcast. It's not going to be resolved. This is going to take many even with your own group, like as you start watching the show more, as things start coming up, as you start seeing more more clips, it's a lot, and you're going through, it's almost like overstimulation too. I can imagine for you. So I just wanted to throw that in if you wanted to.
If there was something that you wanted to like let the Big Brother fans leave with, because we talked way more than we thought we were gonna.
We did.
If you wanted,
I don't know how you thought less of me. I don't know.
Well, we got a lot of questions in. We actually got a lot of questions in. If you wanted the Big Brother fans to leave with anything, like if we're closing this out, you wanted them to leave with anything about you, or what you want them to know about you and understand about you, like what would it be?
I would say that I'm grateful. Like I'm grateful for the interest in the show, and I'm grateful for if somebody's speaking up and saying like, hey, this, and that was actually like, I appreciate what all of you said in terms of, hey, like if the people, you know, that were personally offended feel good with it, then that's all that's matter. And for me, it's like the yes, no, you know, non-binary answer, because it's like both of them. Yeah, it is. That's all that matters between us. But at the same time, if somebody's saying like, hey, this is why this hurt me, like we know that we live in like a patriarchal society. We know we live in like a racist society. We know all these things. And I love the, usually racism isn't something, something that you do, something you are, it's something that you do. Like you do something that is racist. Like it's the and the difference between, racism and isn't not racist isn't the opposite. It's anti-racist. And I think the same thing would probably apply to like misogyny or patriarchy or whatever. And so for me, it's like if somebody's taking the time and they're not trying to be a troll and they're saying like, hey, this hurt me, and like, this hurt my feelings. And then that's because they care about, like, they were listening. First off, I appreciate them listening. I appreciate them being fans of the show, because it wouldn't exist without that. But second off, like, if they're voicing it, it's like, hey, like, it's important to me that you, Kyland, understand this, because if you go somewhere else, someone that I care about might also be affected because they hear this and they see this as an example because it's on a platform, and then it causes this person to not get this job, or this person to be treated differently in this way, or be stuck in this situation. And like, I don't think that most people are speaking out on the things that they loved or the things they didn't love for, some people are speaking out just to hear themselves, just to make noise, or just to be trolls or whatever. But some people are speaking out because they're like, hey, this is a real problem. And like, I do want to know you know, I don't have the platform you do, so I want to help you address it because I just want it fixed. And like, that's what I want too. And so I appreciate, I'm grateful for that opportunity from them and from the fans, and I love it all.
Yeah.
And
yeah, you came ahead strong.
Yeah, Ms. And we said it like over here, you know, K9 Steven said, you know, don't get me wrong, you give you your props in the game. You played a really great game. There were definitely things that you did game wise that really kept everybody together between, I mean, y'all really killed it. So, you know, that is something that you should all be very, very proud of. Miss History, Miss History, I'm so sorry because I saw some of your super chats before and they, with everybody just posting, I couldn't find them again. Miss History, we love her. Tracy, she is in Dallas. She is a history teacher. She also teaches Black history. She says Black women and women in general deal with this every day. Tiffany can't absolve us all.
Absolutely.
These are conversations. These are deep conversations, y'all. Deep conversations. And so
you said sorry.
What was that?
You said that she works in history and what was
in
that?
Education. Yeah, she works in education.
Oh,
She's a history teacher. Thank you, Krista Bailey.
If you have her contact, that's what I'm saying. Or
hopefully find
her.
Her.
Yeah.
Oh my God, cool. I'm sure that she would love the connect to talk about that. Two things, because people were actually asking. I'm gonna ask you a yes or no question. These are yes or no questions.
Try my best.
Ready? 1, is Thailand a thing?
I mean that's a word.
No,
that's
we
a
want
word.
yes or no.
It's a yes or no.
One word.
What
Yes,
do you
no.
define Thailand as?
A couple.
Now you're playing.
Two friends enjoying each other's company.
That is, absolutely. Who couldn't enjoy Tiffany's company?
No, that's not what we defined.
So yes, according to that.
How does Hannah define it? I don't know. I couldn't do it.
I define a thing as any level. It doesn't have to be relationship. It just has to be any level above friendship. Is it on the spectrum between friendship and love? That's what
I mean.
to me.
I love Tiffany and Derek X and everyone. You know, that's the thing. I love you all. So like, yeah, the love's real.
I think Jordan asked. for the
there are so many benefits to being friends with all of these people. Yeah, it's amazing.
It's a good one. And then we had Sarah Beth. We had Sarah Beth on our show the day before yesterday. Was it busy?
Mm-hmm. I saw.
The day before yesterday. Yeah. So we know that she has a special name for you. She said that y'all were going to be talking. You're working on trying to get her to stop calling you this. Yes.
The relationship is great. We actually just spoke before this today.
That was my ask. Have you? She said she was going to talk to you. Have you guys talked? Are you guys?
Yes. We're now. Yeah. Oh yeah. No. I mean, I'd say more than there. I mean, you know, we'll still all relationships, but I am still Kyle only because of nonsense that I'm working on addressing and getting corrected is what.
Well, not to her. It's not nonsense to her. We've gone through this with you already. It's not nonsense.
You're right. I apologize. Definitely wouldn't call it nonsense. I would call it. Now she's just having fun with it. And it's too much fun. I'm working on it though. I'm gonna try and earn back each letter. That's my goal. Is earn back one letter at a time.
We got you, Kyle.
Okay.
Wow, not from you. Not from you.
Krista, Belly, I'm really hoping. Thank you for the super chat. That's very generous of you.
Okay, really wanted to know this. All right.
Really wanted to know this. What is your relationship like with Britt post season? Brittany, our little Brit.
No, little Brit. What's it called? We haven't gotten to hang out or anything because she flew home first before everybody else. But we got to hang out finale night, and I think just finale night really. And it's all love. And we talked about we're still gonna do a big Disney World trip. At least me and her. Hopefully, me and her and some other house guests because she's such a fan. She's the sweetest, and one of the most fun people ever. So all of their mind, and that's all she's told me. Huh?
That's why you kept nominating her. She's so sweet. She's so amazing.
I had to separate personal and game. That's what I told you. For me, it's just, unfortunately for me, it wasn't easy. I always say, like, it wasn't easy doing it, but it was easy to make the decision to do it. It's like Denai Guerrera in Black Panther, where she's talking to her husband. She's like, "Oh," he's like, "Would you kill me, my love?" He's like, "For Wakanda, without question." Like, it just was. That was the line. For me, there was no emotion about it, but it is an emotional game, and we all feel it, and that's the hard part. But fortunately, I think most of our cast is in a great place as far as being able to separate the two enough and have conversations, sometimes tough, sometimes long, deep, whatever, to get us to that place of recognizing that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we appreciate it. Gosh, you know what? Like all of this is just so much. Our chats, I'm not gonna lie to you, Kyland. Our chats were chaotic. These comments here. I know that you're probably. I think you are now deemed king. You've seen this. You've been king. You've been crowned king of chaos.
The king of chaos.
So
yeah, I need to find out about that. I mean, sorry.
You've been crowned king of chaos, just because I think of just like all the chaotic feelings that maybe you bring out in others, maybe the conversations, just like the things that you say create chaos in like what does he mean by this? What happened?
Okay.
So I think that's like kind of like the chaos that you bring.
Chaos with a K.
I mean, chaos.
That's helpful.
There is a king of chaos in Canada. That's Hamza. But I'm assuming that you are probably now crowned king of chaos here in the United States. So like congratulations. But I will say that it's that everybody here, whether you make them feel some sort of way, the fact that you've handled it with a lot of just grace and sometimes laughs, even though sometimes we're gonna try to get an actual answer out of you.
Oh, he gonna be back.
So sure. I think we will invite you back so that you
let me know.
Give us an actual answer.
Yes.
I think. I don't want to leave without you feeling like you've been completely beat up here. See, he says long-winded answers.
He wasn't beat up. He sniffed me, and that's a pleasure.
No, but there was one here saying I wanted to find it. I'm so sorry because I'm not clicking these perfectly. Elena Scott, thank you for the super chat. It's like Kai had a lot of tender, caring moments with women in the house. Those should also be highlighted. Yes, I'm by no means, and I really hope that you don't take it this way. Like I definitely I've seen all of the greatness as well. Like we all come with a little of this and that, so by no means do I feel like I hope you don't feel that we have butchered you too much. Like I hope you don't feel like we've like attacked you in any way. Like we really have tried to keep it just accountable. Like to stay accountable.
Well, and I'm gonna be responsible.
You can also at least leave. You can at least leave knowing that you've made Busy's month from.
Oh my God! Yes.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Yo.
Okay, Elena,
he's been waiting for this.
I fell in love with him because of like his emotions and those aspects. It was like I'm in heaven. Like we don't have to do no more interviews after this. To be honest, okay, we can end it here. So that is true. You've made someone's day.
Yeah, Kyland, we were talking to SB about this because we feel like she got that villainous edit. Do you consider yourself to be a villain or a hero on the show?
Good question.
I mean, I haven't finished the full edit. The chaos thing is definitely something that I'm still. I haven't gotten to see enough clips to know that perspective. I know that there were moments in the game. For me, the hero is everyone, but the hero is really like was the cookout getting to the end of the game, and there were decisions that I was fortunately in a position to make that overrid other members of that who wanted something different to happen that week. And I don't know, I can never say if that was the right decision, the optimal decision, the best decision, but the fact that all 6 of us made it to the end, I can at least say it wasn't the wrong decision. And so for me, I'm happy to have had a part of the heroic, historic moment of the cookout, and let people decide, whatever that part is.
Yeah. And oh my God, and how can I not with Miss History?
Oh yeah, of course.
How could we even end this without
I know what were we
talking
thinking?
about kind complaints? I think I saw Kemi's response somewhere on here that she said that your explanations were excellent.
Yes, expensive, not expensive. Oh, that's just excellent. Got it. Yeah.
She said they were excellent. And someone did say expensive here.
I mean, we would have had a class action lawsuit on our hands if you guys didn't bring this up. That's the main thing.
Are you gonna keep up with the Kai complaints? Is that something that you're gonna be doing now? Is this your brand?
I don't know. Last night we had a thing, with Chipotle, and Tiffany was like, "Hey, I think we need to complain," and I was like, "Nah, I didn't post it on Twitter. It wasn't enough chips. So many problems. I didn't put it on Twitter because I was like, you know what? We're gonna let this one pass. We're just gonna play with this one in the IG moments." But it was it's funny because like the reason I go to Twitter too is because I like to mess with the corporations themselves, because I'm never gonna go into a restaurant and like ruin somebody's day, like somebody's job that's at a job that's getting paid too little inside a restaurant. I'm not going to go complain to like the manager in a restaurant and get somebody fired and have somebody who already has probably their own struggles and difficult life. But as far as like hitting the corporations directly, for me, of course, like I'm like, hey, you guys are big, y'all got money, y'all causing me problems. So we got to keep the Kai complaints up in that regard, at least. As long as people don't mix it up.
As a social media manager, the only person today who you're rooting is the social media managers. They're like, oh shit, not this guy again.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to ruin your day. That's not good.
I'm just kidding.
We'll chat offline. We'll figure out. You'll yeah. Well, it's funny is all my reviews though of places on Yelp.
Sorry.
All my reviews on Yelp are positive.
I usually positive Yelp reviews?
No, so on Yelp, I pretty much only do positive reviews. I think
that's like, the only time I complain.
Yeah, literally, like, no, because I don't want to, like I said, I'm a big supporter of like small business owners. So it's funny, if I go to some place and I don't like the food or whatever, I make the review, but I don't post it. That way in my phone, it's safe. So I'm like, okay, am I going to go to this restaurant? I'm like, no, I already went there. I only put them 3 stars. But I think I have like 60 something reviews and like, there's like 5 negative or something. Yeah, Jordan,
yeah,
they're all positive. Yeah, they got them. They know. It's like almost all 5 stars. And then I just am like, this one, anything that's like low, I usually save it. Unless I could talk to the owner, unless the owner messes with me, then I'm like, yo.
You're right, though. Twitter is the outlet. I mean, if anybody ever like wants to complain about anything, Twitter is the one that will get you a response to any corporation.
The free stuff I've gotten.
No.
The free stuff. Hey, the results speak for themselves.
Exactly.
We'll do 5 stars. Okay, well, this was great, y'all. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you, Kyland, for coming. Hopefully, I mean, you're going to be watching. I'm assuming that you're going to be watching the rest of your season and future seasons of Big Brother. Yes, of course. That is, I'm a fan. I'm still a fan. That's why like I haven't gotten tired of talking about the game and getting to play and find out, oh wow, like it's way harder than I thought. So I mean, all the more props to you, Jessica. Like it was so difficult and nobody has any idea how hard it is, but it was also so much more fun. I say, like, as soon as I came into that house, I started apologizing for all the shit I ever talked about any other house guest. Same. Because it's just not, I mean, it's not as easy as playing inside of the game. It's very, very taxing. Just being there is effort. And yeah. It's a lot of work. And people feel like they did something. It's because just being there, you feel like you're doing something because you're on 24/7. So I kind of understand that aspect. I keep on forgetting sometimes, because now coming back out, I'm looking and I'm just like, but you're not you. But I have to put myself in that situation. So, hopefully like you came out and you we have more of respect for the game and more love for the game. And yeah, the season was a great season and we had fun watching all of y'all. Sometimes we laugh, sometimes we cried. You definitely helped me through my shit from my bunk ass season. So like, you know, I'm actually happy that this is the worst that y'all are getting, because, you know, my season actually had it pretty
remember.
bad.
Well,
Yeah,
I would say,
so.
yeah. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I mean, I think one thing that just popped in my head too on the accountability and making sure I'm understood side, that I feel very passionate about was with Tiffany earlier when I was saying like, damn, like I wish that I had known, you know, that she wasn't telling me the truth in that moment, and that it was actually me and her that probably should win. And she was afraid that like I wouldn't bring her. That I didn't mean it, because that's the thing. I thought in the beginning, like when I was like, yeah, of course, like if I'm Cody, I'll bring Derek. Like who cares if I'm gonna lose? Like this is my person. And apparently I was the only person in the house besides maybe Derek X who could say that in all seriousness. And so she very reasonably thought that wasn't me being serious. I wasn't saying that like, oh, that's her own fault, she's on the block. What I was elaborating on what I did with her is that my biggest that's still on me, because going back to like week 3 after we made our final 2, I was like, okay, say less, like, and I don't need to talk or whatever. But I did have enough information to know that she's not that type of person, that like us talking, us building a relationship would have had her and had us both in a place where doubts, you know, and mistrust wouldn't have been in place by the time we got further in the game, and our whole game would have been different. That's why when people ask me about like, oh, do you regret the decision you made at 6? It's like, no, like I don't, because I was just using the information I had. I regret the decision I made at week 3 when it was like, oh, let me make sure that I'm talking to this person all the time, because they are I don't want to say normal, because I think that normal is not even what she is, but like most people need, especially in this game of lies and manipulations and relationships, they do want to have more communication more regularly to build that bond over the course of the season. And I should have realized that and should have been better about that with her, because then we would have had our relationship in a place that by the time we got there, if we even need to have that same conversation, it would have gone differently. And I had enough information to know that, and she tried to let me know that back in week 6, and I did increase it, and it just wasn't as much as was needed, and I wish it was. And that's something on me, like not on her, for the record.
But to end it out, Tiffany would be a great representation for Black
people. Of course. Tiffany would be a great representation for Black people, and as the winner of Big Brother, as the winner of AFP, as the winner of everything, and that's something that, and I said that stuff.
There we go. Come on, Jessica, close us out. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I could curse. Yeah, and I said that shit.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we wanted.
Best ending.
And that right there is the tea. Thank you all for joining us again. Next week is the beginning of Bachelorette. We are going to be recapping the season of Michelle, all of Michelle. So if you all are watching Bachelorette this season, make sure you follow us. We will be recapping those, as well as after my birthday week. We will probably get into a couple more interviews as you requested. Whatever you want, hit us up in the comments. We love you all. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you, Kyland, for being here with us. And we are going to say peace out. Love y'all. Bye.
Thank you all. Love you all.